Hey, welcome to the show. How would you feel as a military father about going up before the school board and then smacking them upside the head with some common sense? Well, last year it happened at a school board meeting. This military dad smacks the school board upside the head with some common sense. And believe me, we can all watch this video probably waste the common sense alert for this video. But why would he raise some common sense as a military father? Maybe it was maybe because of the freedom. Maybe because of let's watch.
Good evening, everybody. My name is George Gonzalez. I have two children that are attending currently the Redlands School District. I've been a military service member for 24 years now, currently still serving. I've also owned and operated an automotive repair shop in San Bernardino. And if I can use an analogy real quick, it's pretty fair to say, or an assumption, that most people here own a car. And if you were to bring your vehicle to me for a tune-up, a service, a tire rotation or whatnot, you entrust your vehicle while you leave it and it's in my care. You would hope that while your vehicle's in my care, that I'm not doing anything illegal with your vehicle, anything unscrupulous with your vehicle, that I'm not loaning it to drug dealers to mule a couple tons of cocaine up and down the coast or across the border. I'm sure you would be pretty upset if you got a call from the police department saying, hey, we have recovered your vehicle over the Tijuana border with 10 keys of cocaine, or smuggling children across the border, or whatnot. So from a standpoint of the parents' right to know, I'm not here personally to argue whose rights I want to infringe on or have my rights infringe on. I just feel as a parent, it is my absolute right to know everything that involves my children. So with that said, like I said, whatever policies the district wants to impose on the school system and the children and whatnot, all I'm asking as a parent is give me the respect to tell me, hey, if your child wants to sexually transition into a different gender, we're going to support it. And then me as a parent, I have the right to take my children out of your school district and into one that is not doing something like that. And again, I know that the young lady spoke earlier and said that it seems like, I think she mentioned that children don't feel safe at home to be able to open up to their parents and to bring these type of things. As a parent, it's our responsibility to mentor and guide our children to be the better human beings that we are, or better persons than we are, right? I have a 3-year-old who runs up and down my house all day screaming that he's a T-Rex. If he tells me tomorrow that he wants me to cut his arms off and give him the little nubs as a T-Rex does, is it pretty safe to say that I'm kind of an idiot if I want to go start cutting his hands off? Children don't know what they want. I can say the same thing for my 11-year-old who wants to explore different stuff. He wants to start drinking because he sees us drinking on TV. Do we just start condoning and giving him alcohol because his identity is now to be an alcoholic like he sees on the movies, on the video games? Should we hand 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds that are playing video games, Call of Duty, should we hand them guns because that's what they identify as warriors? We have to have a limit as parents, and it's our responsibility to coach and mentor these children. All we're asking is that you give us the right for us to choose if we want to partake in something like that. Thank you.
Well, he has raised the common sense alert for us. What was that common sense about? Well, it was about let's watch a portion of this. Talking about
parent is give me the respect to tell me, hey, if your child wants to.
It's all about what the child wants. It's just all about what the child wants. Every parent has to support their child no matter what. That's the basic common sense thread here. Believe me, I wouldn't know. Yes, sir. Amen.
Should we transition into a different gender? We're going to support it. And then me as a parent, I have the right to take my children out of your school district.
It's all about parents being supportive and not school districts being supportive. Everybody has to be supportive, not just the whole community, but every parent needs to be supportive. And that's exactly what I think needs to happen here, you know. Every parent needs to be supportive no matter what. Their dreams. Every member of the community needs to support everybody and what their dreams will want to be, you know. Singer, songwriter, star, actor, and actress. We gotta support our kids in whatever career they want to propose. You know, doctors, lawyers, whatever. Keep chasing your dreams and don't let anyone stop you. That's basically the whole key here to this case. So it is props to the father. Props to the father for raising that common sense and not actually smacking them upside the head while giving them common sense. That would have been assault right there. And if it was assault, that'd be a whole different story. Still ahead, the plain truth. We're going to tell you some things all about air luggages and the time of flights and what you need to know. Next, however, it's the month of October and people are walking through the crosswalks while the cars are not paying attention. You're going to meet some people who have some thoughts about this, and we'll give you the statistics from TxDOT. Tony Hollomere on crosswalk safety. Please stay with us. Now to something that's very first for this broadcast. You know, a couple seasons ago, or last season, we focused in on no jaywalking. We did a whole special all about no jaywalking. Talking about, you know, why it's illegal to jaywalk, why people don't use the crosswalk. I even showed you one of my videos that I uploaded talking about how to use a simple crosswalk. Just push a button and then all of a sudden, poof, you're crossing the crosswalk. But pedestrian fatalities is what hits it. This is the type of month where it's dangerous to cross the streets without any reflective gear or flashlights or reflective vests. But according to TxDOT, 19 serious pedestrian injuries and 8 pedestrian deaths have happened here in Corpus Christi last year. I should know because it happened here in Flower Bluff. A pedestrian, he was a handicapped person. A car hit him in his ankle. He bled everywhere, and you know, we're not going to get into that. But what we're going to show you here is some statistics from TxDOT, and you're also going to meet some people who say that they were not aware of this until Chris Six told them. And not just that, there is now a new state law put in place to where if you hit a person while they're crossing the street, you could go to jail. Meaning if you run over somebody with your car and it hit that person, you're going to jail. Here's Tony Hollomere.
There were 19 pedestrian serious injuries last year in Corpus Christi, and unfortunately, there were 8 pedestrian fatalities.
I shared these statistics with some neighbors on the south side.
It doesn't surprise me.
Why not?
I don't know, you just have careless drivers nowadays.
Very close calls. Because, like I said, when they'll be trying to beat the traffic, when we try to turn, we're turning right here, they'll try to beat traffic. And we'll be like, is you going to stop or you going to go? They be like, right this close.
Robert Walton prefers to walk to get around. He said he notices a lot of distracted drivers.
No texting and driving law was put to good use, and a lot more people need to pay attention to that because, I mean, that's what's causing a lot of the accidents.
Seasonal change is one of the biggest reasons October is a dangerous month for pedestrians.
So the fall and winter months usher in shorter days and less light. Drivers may struggle to see pedestrians in the lower light conditions.
That includes using crosswalks, flashlights, and reflective gear when possible. And one more tip.
Pedestrians also need to make eye contact with drivers. You need to look at the driver, make sure they see you. Don't assume that they're going to stop for you.
TxDOT officials say there's a new state law that says if a driver hurts a pedestrian who's in a crosswalk, that driver is liable for a state jail felony. From the south side, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Tony Jaramillo, Chris 6 News.
Thanks, Tony. And it's important to raise some common sense all about pedestrian safety. As we noted in our jaywalking special, it's illegal to jaywalk, but now California made it legal to jaywalk. I would imagine if Texas is the same thing, but only one state made it legal, while all the other states, like here in Texas, made it illegal to jaywalk in the middle of the street. And I'm glad there is a new state law put in place, all about where if you hit somebody, because this month is National Pedestrian Safety Month, and we have to be aware of this, because where did you get your driver's license from? A cereal box, or did you have to take a class to learn all about pedestrian safety? I mean, maybe what I have to do, maybe what I should do is show you that video that I uploaded last year. Because y'all need to understand, it is not that hard I mean, kind of like, where's the common sense? Just watch. Alright, here it is. The button's pushed. The light's green. There's the stop sign on the intersection of Waldron and SPIV. What I meant to say was, I just pushed the button, that light's green, that light's red, and in a few seconds, it's going to turn from red to green, and that crosswalk's going to be on. Now, when that green light is on, that crosswalk's going to take you across the street under the bridge right here. That's what I actually meant. In just a few minutes, it's going to turn red, and you will see the walk sign. I'm pointing this out to y'all because there needs to be common sense being raised here. Okay, there's the yellow. Let me zoom in here. There's a few minutes. There it is. There's that walk sign right there. See my finger? There it is. 16 seconds. That gives you 16 seconds to walk from here down to there. Or to walk from there to here. Once it stops, that turns red there, and that turns green. Now, what's the point of doing this? Common sense. Because we've lost common sense when it comes to traffic safety. I'll see you tonight. And that's what I've explained. I mean, we had an accident. That was after the accident happened, because nobody knows how to push a button. Well, he pushed a button, he crossed the street, and the car hit him. Well, we're not raising, I mean, I'm glad that law's put in place. So, we've got to understand all about pedestrian safety. We got to take classes, we got to learn some tips. The biggest tip I have for you, don't be wearing any dark clothing. Wear light clothing like this. A light shirt, and if you have light pants, that could work as well. Wear a safety vest. Wear a reflective safety vest, and it'll help you. Don't wear black on black. Wear light colored clothing and reflective vest. It'll help you out at night. Because this is one of the most dangerous months ever to be crossing the street. And if you have to, take extra precautions and always wear your safety vest. You can find one at Walmart or at any retail store. And once you find that, you'll thank me. All right. Here's the bottom line here. It is illegal to jaywalk, while in California, it's legal to jaywalk. All I want to do is thank my good friend Tony Alamir for explaining this information. Okay. there's now an E. coli outbreak in 10 states at a local McDonald's. And
Investigator.
me being an employee there, I gotta say, I've watched this story several times. I did not want to talk about it because I was afraid it would spread in this state, but we're going to talk about it because there are some tips that you need to know to avoid E. coli. We'll take a second, and we'll also take a second look in just a minute. So take a look at this.
Looking into the serious McDonald's E. coli outbreak. Investigators looking into the serious McDonald's E. coli outbreak are zeroing in on uncooked onions found in the Quarter Pounder burgers. McDonald's is temporarily removing the Quarter Pounder from restaurants in Colorado, Kansas, Utah, and Wyoming, and also from some restaurants in 8 other states. Attorney Ron Simon represents 12 victims of the E. coli outbreak.
The victims that we represent are between 20 and 60 years old and have a range of symptoms, a range of seriousness for their illnesses. Again, from being sick for a week or two to still being in hospital.
The onions on Quarter Pounders aren't cooked. McDonald's uses raw onions, slicing them into thin pieces. Food safety expert Donnie Yu. How is it possible for the raw onions on the Quarter Pounder to become contaminated?
We have to understand they're coming from a field. Potentially they get contaminated through water that irrigates the produce. It could be from bird droppings. The contamination can occur during the transport phase.
Considering the E. coli outbreak, many fans of McDonald's are today wondering why not cook the onions.
Raw onions are crunchier, and then cooked onions have that different flavor profile.
Today, the president of McDonald's is assuring its customers.
It's important to note that the majority of states and the majority of menu items are not affected.
Experts say, don't panic. Would you feel safe eating a Quarter Pounder?
I would feel safe as long as I know that they've identified the source and it was definitive.
It's not without knowing a taste test. When we return, we're going to take a second look into E. coli, and we're also going to tell you all about what you need to know. We talked about this last season, and when we return, we'll take a second look. And later, the plain truth. Stay with us. E. coli. With E. coli happening in the Quarter Pounders of the McDonald's Quarter Pounders in all 10 states, I thought it might be a great idea to take a second look into these E. coli, into the E. coli stories. First the meat, then the vegetables, and then our apple juice. Meat, veggie, drink. That's in the order they'll go. We start with our meats. Each time you take a bite of a rare hamburger, are you playing Russian roulette with your body? Well, nowadays you go into a fancy restaurant, like let's say, Outback Steakhouse, and you want a mid-rare burger. Are you playing Russian roulette with your body? What I recommend is you have a medium well hamburger, which is what I recommend. Or just go to places besides McDonald's that sells people like a Whataburger, Burger King, Jack in the Box. Burger places that actually cook them fast to medium well or well done. But when we first showed you this story last season, I suggested to y'all with an infrared thermometer, and one person in the comment section agreed with me. And I thought it might be a great time to take a second look at this. So, here's Al Diaz with our Give Me a Break second look.
Each time you take a bite of a hamburger, are you playing Russian roulette?
How would you like it cooked?
Medium rare.
Well done.
Rare. If you're still eating your burgers rare, or medium, or even medium well, what you don't know could kill you. This dire warning is coming now not from a consumer group, but from the federal government.
The message needs to be very strongly conveyed to consumers that the days when one could eat medium rare or rare hamburgers are over.
The Agriculture Department's Dr. Glenn Morris says contaminated ground beef is now a major problem. E. coli 0157H7 The deadly bacteria, first discovered in hamburger in 1982, is spreading. The bacteria is found in the intestines and feces of some cattle. During slaughtering, it's sometimes accidentally transferred onto the meat. From there, it can end up being ground into the hamburger you or your children eat.
It tends to strike particularly children as well as the elderly. And it also can strike essentially without warning. You can have a child who eats an undercooked hamburger and who can be dead within a matter of days.
This is not just another food scare story. The government says we're in the midst of an E. coli epidemic, and the meat industry agrees it's a serious problem. There are things consumers can do to protect themselves, but critics say both the industry and government have done a poor job of getting us that information. In the meantime, E. coli is killing people, as many as 500 a year, according to official estimates.
Kind of blows you away. My son died because he ate a hamburger. It just, very hard to comprehend that simply a couple bites of a hamburger killed him.
It happened so quickly, Jan Sowerby still can't believe it. Scotty was a healthy, smiling 3-year-old. Then Jan says he ate a hamburger on a camping trip, and a week later was rushed to the hospital with bloody diarrhea. There are no antibiotics for E. coli. Kidney dialysis can help, but in Scotty's case it failed. And after a week of torturous pain, he died.
I was holding him, and he was laying on the cot, and he kept trying to say something to me, and I couldn't understand him. His teeth were just gritted so hard. He was in so much pain, he could not open his mouth to talk. He said to me, "Mommy, please hug me." And that was actually the last words that my son ever spoke to me.
Scotty's mother and grandmother have joined STOP, an organization of victims' families.
Thank you.
Jan is a pharmacist in Michigan and has made it her mission to warn others about this new strain of E. coli, which she calls a serial killer.
It's out there, and it is killing victims, and it's an evil, evil, evil thing. It tears these kids apart, and people need to know that, yes, it is happening. It's not just one incident. It's not just my son. It's not just the Jack in the Box.
You may remember the E. coli outbreak at Jack in the Box restaurants 3 years ago. 4 children died. What you probably don't know is that there have been dozens of outbreaks since then, and many others who've died apparently from eating contaminated ground beef. Victims like 6-year-old Alex Donnelly of Chicago, 13-year-old Eric Mueller, and 88-year-old Florence Metz of California, 69-year-old Virginia Watt, and 3-year-old Kevin Scott from Washington State.
Public health officials confirmed there is a second victim now of the potentially deadly H7 E. coli bacteria.
The problem has become so widespread that this year all 50 states have reported cases of E. coli poisoning. In Georgia and Tennessee, 7 people got sick, including this young boy. Authorities say they all ate hamburgers at Central Park drive-through restaurants. In New York, meat bought at this supermarket chain tested positive for E. coli, officials say, and 11 people were infected. The store says it got the bad meat from a distributor. And in Massachusetts, contaminated ground beef at a county fair apparently led to this young girl and 10 others being stricken.
All the data we have coming in suggests that it is a major problem. It is a problem that clearly has increased significantly over the past decade, from 0 up to where we're talking 20,000 cases a year.
20,000 cases, 500 deaths, an epidemic?
An epidemic.
You would call it one.
I think it is, yes.
And in a frightening development, this same deadly strain of E. coli has turned up in salami, and scientists believe may have spread from cow manure to some fruits and vegetables, and even water. Still, ground beef is the single biggest source of this E. coli. Why hamburger and not other cuts of meat? Well, with steaks and roasts, any E. coli is on the surface and is easily killed during cooking. But when meat is ground up, the bacteria on the surface can get mixed into the middle of the hamburger, where it's much harder to cook out. E. coli is not in every hamburger, but it could be in any hamburger.
Probably 1 out of 1,000 hamburger samples contains this organism. You stop and think how many hamburgers you eat, that starts adding up.
Americans eat more than 20 billion hamburgers a year, so millions of raw burgers may be contaminated. Yet many people don't know that. The meat industry says it's trying to get the word out.
The way that the meat industry has actually reacted, I think, has been pretty responsive.
American Meat Institute scientist Janet Collins-Williams points to these brochures they've sent to supermarkets and the safe handling labels now required on all meat packages.
I think that by having the government mandate a label that says this is the proper care for a product and having the industry support it with materials in the grocery stores and at food service, I think is about the best we can do.
But is this label good enough? It certainly doesn't grab your attention. The print is so small, many consumers have never read it. And the label doesn't say anything about E. coli in ground beef. Instead, it gives generic advice for handling all meat and poultry. It says keep it refrigerated and separate from other foods, and cook thoroughly. But how do you know when a hamburger is thoroughly cooked? The label doesn't say, and many people don't know.
How were you judging whether the burgers were done? I was going basically by the color of the outside of the burger in the medium.
Rob Gordiak and his sister Lisa Grosch thought the hamburgers were cooked well enough at a family barbecue in June. But a week later, Lisa's 3-year-old son Jason ended up in the hospital with bloody diarrhea. In this case, emergency kidney dialysis saved his life. But his family wishes they'd known how to make sure a hamburger is safe.
We're looking for 155 degrees to kill the E. coli bacteria.
Experts like Brian Halloran of Cornell University say if the middle of the hamburger reaches 155 degrees Fahrenheit, the E. coli will be destroyed. But most people don't carry around a meat thermometer, so you should look for 2 things. First, there should be no pink left inside the burger. Second, if the meat's juices are at all red like this, the burger is not done. Wait until the juices run clear. But none of this information is on the safe handling label.
Why not be more precise on the label and say cook until the juices run clear or there's no pink left or something like that?
That's clearly an option.
Until the juices run clear, I think it's wonderful.
But it's not on there. Do you think that should be on there?
I think it could be on there.
And the label doesn't say what even the meat industry admits. There's only one safe way to eat a hamburger.
Well done.
Well done. Not medium well.
Well done.
And it's not just the hamburger itself you have to watch out for. It's everything the meat touches.
So even the spatula could carry the E. coli after having touched the raw hamburger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Food safety experts like Cornell's Bonnie Richmond say to avoid cross-contamination, wash your hands and any utensils, and never put other foods where raw hamburgers been. Just 4 months ago, 2-year-old Paige Hall from Ohio died, apparently after she ate a hot dog that had been contaminated by raw hamburger on the same plate. Last week, her father, who helped prepare that hot dog, was apparently so distraught he committed suicide. It's not uncommon for the families of victims to feel guilty, but Jan Sowerby says the government and beef industry should be doing more to keep E. coli out of meat.
I don't expect to be told, well, if you just cook your meat, that wouldn't have happened. To me, that's blaming me, and it's not my fault that my son died from eating a hamburger. That's just not my fault, and I won't accept that.
The USDA is trying to change the antiquated meat inspection system, and the industry says it's actively looking for solutions.
The industry's spending millions of dollars on protective technologies to try to get the carcasses cleaner and the meat better than it's been.
You think there will be a time when you can guarantee that the meat is free of E. coli?
No.
Can you tell the American consumer now that meat, ground beef that is approved by the USDA is free of E. coli?
No.
So the message to you, the consumer, is simple and urgent. Undercooked ground beef can kill.
Boy, Arnold, What about the fast food restaurants now? Are they selling fewer rare burgers and more well done?
Absolutely. I don't think you can order a rare burger in a fast food restaurant. Everything is well done. They have temperature controls, and they're really on top of it now. The problem is at home, backyard barbecues.
And we still need to worry about that.
Yeah, we're in E. coli season now. Break open that burger, cut it in half before you eat it. If it's red, put it back on the grill.
Now, what's happened since you first reported on this?
Well, we're expecting any day now the USDA to announce a new inspection program for ground beef, including sampling for bacteria. They don't do that right now. And also, the processors are doing steam cleaning of the carcasses to try to kill the E. coli.
And that should help.
Yes, that is helping.
But cook them well.
Cook them well.
Thank you, Arnold.
Wow. Cook them well. And like I talked about, you know, in that previous piece, here's what I said. Take a look at what I said after. Take a look at what I said.
That you'll be seeing a lot of in the future.
Take a look. I should point out, speaking of that carcass thing, last season we showed you an investigation by Primetime Live into meat inspections. I think we showed you that, but if we haven't, we may show you that. I try to remember, but if we showed it to you, but if we didn't, we might show it to you again because this is very important for you. For everyone. Not a lot of gourd we use, but sorry. It's not basically to scare you, it's just to basically help you out. Like last season, we showed you about E. coli in vegetables. And here's a common sense perspective. So here's where I raised the common sense alert. That everyone must know. A lot of people would say, how am I supposed to know that burger's done? I mean, I go like, you can't do that, but how am I supposed to know? I mean, if you worked at McDonald's or any other restaurant you say I still don't know. Where did you get your food permit from? A cereal box? Look at mine. I got mine online. You take a test. That test is going to prove to you, you take that test, it's going to prove to you got your food handler's permit. And it expires every 2 years. So, what you have to do is to understand and say to yourself, well, if I'm going to learn more about food safety, I need to find out more by taking a food safety test. That way I can know what I'm doing. It's exactly right. I mean, you may not be working at a fast food restaurant, but it's very important for you to be learning all about food safety. That's number one. Second thing is to get a thermometer, a meat thermometer. Some of them are not digital, some of them are digital. But if you're afraid of poking that thing in, there is a great device that you can use. And this is where I come into play here. Listen. It's called an infrared thermometer. An infrared thermometer is knowing the amount of infrared energy emitted by an object's temperature. And it can be used on humans. But can you use it on food? I mean, you can use it for cooking if you're afraid to use that little thing, the one with the poking holes. How do you use it for cooking? Point the infrared thermometer at the liquid that is on the ladle or that serves as a stew, but stew a few seconds, the temperature reading shows up on the display. You can, and I believe that if you're afraid to use those thermometers with a pokey thing, that's a great tool to use. So the answer is yes. And going back to the infrared thermometer, I've heard my search this several times. Or you can look at an instant read thermometer. So, it's like I talked about here, you can buy all of these infrared thermometers on Amazon. We use Can you find other programs that'll help you stop smoking? There you know the good temperature. And after that aired, last year, Frank Manhands commented on this video saying, I totally agree, and my friend Chef Tony Ronaldo has the same problem. Great video, please make more. I like the part about meat thermometers. I just ordered an infrared thermometer. I'll recommend to me and my friends Lewis and Christian too. Well, Frank Manhands, I want to thank you for commenting in this video. This is a second look for you. I really hope that your friends can really update as we go along. So, this Eli outbreak's not over yet. Coming up, E. coli in vegetables and our apple juice. Stay with us. Welcome back. Before we continue on here, I want to point out we have planned to bring you the plain truth, but because of what we talked about, the E. coli, we're going to be dedicating the rest of the show all about taking a second look into E. coli. So if you're just joining us, tonight we're taking a second look into E. coli. From that hamburger to all Diaz's report. So we looked at the outbreak, so here's the thing. We looked at the outbreak from McDonald's. We looked at what you should do we looked at the why shouldn't we have a rare hamburger. Now we're going to talk about E. coli in our vegetables. If you don't rinse off your vegetables, then you might end up with E. coli in your system. So the question is, how can you tell whether or not it's safe vegetables that you eat is safe to eat, like lettuce or broccoli? Here's Lynn Sure with our next Give Me a Break second look.
For most kids, this is just a routine kitchen chore, helping mom wash the salad.
We're making lettuce. Good.
But for 5-year-old Haley Bernstein of Wilton, Connecticut, it is a matter of life and death. Back in June of 1996, Haley, then 3, and her older sister Chelsea, came down with what seemed to be terrible stomach aches. After several days of bloody diarrhea and non-stop crying, their parents took them to the hospital. The doctors took a stool culture and said it was the bacteria E. coli.
My first reaction was, I'm going to lose them. Oh, you don't get over E. coli. You really don't survive that.
Why is it that the term E. coli made you so upset?
Because E. coli equals death. In my head, that's what it equaled.
That was certainly the image of E. coli when it made headlines a few years ago, turning up in hamburgers at Jack in the Box restaurants in Washington state. It caused the deaths of 4 children. Up to now, E. coli has usually been associated with meat contaminated by cow feces. What we all identified E. coli with, certainly at that period, was hamburgers. Had the girls had hamburgers?
Well, I had taken them from fast food, and so I immediately connected the two.
But was it hamburgers?
No, it wasn't, and I was shocked, beyond shocked, when we found out what it was.
What it was lettuce, an innocent-looking mix of baby greens called mesclun salad, found in nearly every fashionable grocery store. And what had poisoned it was the same bacteria found in the hamburgers, E. coli. Haley's sister Chelsea came down with a mild set of symptoms and went home the same day. But Haley developed the worst possible reaction, a condition called hemolytic uremic syndrome. Her kidneys simply shut down. She was put on a ventilator, transfused, fed through a tube, came down with pneumonia, lung disease, and congestive heart failure. After 2 terrifying months in the hospital, the nightmare got unimaginably worse.
She had a bleeding on the left side of her head that was the size of a tennis ball. That was,
Required brain surgery.
6 hours worth of surgery.
Brain surgery?
Yeah. You're talking a perfectly healthy, normal, great kid who just ate some lettuce.
The brain surgery left Haley's eyesight permanently damaged. She became diabetic, and there were times when her parents thought she would die. But finally, miraculously, the day came when she was discharged. What was the worst moment for you while all this was going on?
I think it's the most frightening time was the day they came in so that we could take her home. That was the most frightening day for me.
Why?
Sorry.
You've been through 14 and a half weeks of fear and a little hope and then more fear, and now you got to bring her home. Why was it scary?
Because I was responsible for her. She was so sick. And we came home, she was on 10 or 11 medications. It took us 2.5 hours to get through the medications. Twice a day.
Haley and her sister were not alone. Investigators say, in all, 61 people in Connecticut and Illinois got sick from the same batch of lettuce. Tammy Ardema from St. Charles, Illinois, suffered for days before she drove herself to the emergency room.
The pain was horrible. They pumped me with antibiotics, very strong ones, and I was there for about 4 hours.
Tammy was lucky. Adults just get sick. For children, the elderly, and people with compromised immune systems, it is potentially lethal. How did lettuce become so dangerous? Investigators say it's just a matter of connecting the dots at this small farm in the heart of California lettuce country. They say the cows graze back over there, right next to where the lettuce was washed, which is right back in here. So it's entirely possible that bits of cow feces containing the bacteria were trapped into the shed or seeped into the water supply. An FDA inspector at this makeshift lettuce grower, Fancy Cut Farms, found a list of egregious violations. Employees used bare hands. The lettuce was transported in dirty, reused boxes. And well water next to the cattle was not treated, filtered, or chlorinated. Just before the outbreak, Fancy Cut's filter system got clogged. And government inspectors say these workers may have been triple washing the lettuce with dirty water. We invited Lori Durand, a food safety activist, to visit Fancy Cut Farms with us. Although shut down since January and ravaged by a local flood, it still bore the telltale remnants of a deficient packing plant. Lori, when you look at this operation, what do you see?
Well, in a perfect situation, I think what you want is processing that looks like your kitchen. You don't want a processing area that looks like a shed. You want a processing area that has been closed, keep the animals, birds, insects out.
In other words, because it's so open, anything could walk in there.
Yes, grow in there, grow on the ceilings, grow on the walls. Yes, exactly.
Give me a gut reaction to what you see as you stand here.
Revolting.
Revolting. The owner of Fancy Cut Farms, Robert Chavez, has denied he was to blame for the outbreak, but he refused to speak with 2020. And according to FDA documents, he was uncooperative with the agency during an inspection because he was too busy and repeatedly didn't return the inspector's calls. What really upsets food safety activists like Duran is that the conditions at Fancy Cut are not unique. From what you know, Lori, is this what was a farm here? Is this unusual, or is this something that happens in other places too?
Well, it's my understanding that in that farm, they're packing in an animal facility with manure in piles around where they're packing.
We took a look at the neighboring farm, which was recently used to pack broccoli in persimmons. And what we found didn't look like any kitchen where we would eat.
I believe this used to be a cow shed, because this is the place where a cow would normally put its head to be fed on the other side of this particular structure.
So these would be the troughs, the feeding troughs over here.
I believe so.
Okay.
And then this detritus, which I'm reluctant to touch with my hand, represents cow manure and feces otherwise from animals.
These kinds of conditions have led to 6 known cases of E. coli contamination in lettuce in the past few years. There were 2 cases from alfalfa sprouts just last June. And in July of 1996 in Japan, E. coli in radish sprouts put thousands of people in the hospital, them school children. It's not just salad fixings. Other foods that are eaten raw can also transmit the bacteria. In 1996, after drinking unpasteurized Odwalla apple juice, 70 people, mostly children, were infected with E. coli, including Lori Duran's daughter, Annie.
It was absolutely devastating because, first of all, you try to protect your child from absolutely everything horrible that could happen. And then you find that by giving them something that you think is healthy, you've actually possibly killed one.
Did it ever occur to you that apple juice could do this to your daughter?
Oh, never. I mean, I would have never thought that there were bacteria that were as life-threatening as E. coli 157H7. And 20 years ago when I took biology, this organism wasn't identified. People didn't know about it.
While E. coli has been around for millennia, this virulent new mutation called 0157H7 was only discovered in the early 1980s. Dr. Ross Davidson is a microbiologist at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto. After 2 E. coli outbreaks from lettuce in Canada last year, he decided to investigate. Using blue dye to simulate E. coli tainted water, he showed us how easily it can permeate an entire head of lettuce.
Lettuce is very porous. It's composed almost entirely of water, so there's no barrier to stop E. coli from getting access to the inside. And that's why it's important to thoroughly wash both the outside and the inside leaves.
Later, he sprayed the lettuce with bacteria and performed an experiment to demonstrate whether washing would completely eliminate the germs.
The first plate here shows you how much E. coli bacteria you might expect to find on the outer leaves prior to washing.
Then he showed us how much E. coli is left, even after a thorough washing. 2 cells in this case.
You can't completely eliminate the risk, but you can certainly reduce it.
Scientists say it can take as few as 1 to 10 cells of this new strain of E. coli to make you sick.
Knowing what this researcher has done, the scientist in Toronto, does that put even more pressure on the FDA as far as you're concerned?
Absolutely, it cannot get to our homes. And we cannot be expected to eliminate a biohazard from our kitchen.
The FDA is responsible for making sure we don't have to. But Joe Levitt, who runs the agency's Center for Food Safety, says scientists are still trying to figure out how.
There already exist specific mandatory guidelines, rules for meat, for milk, for seafood. Why not for produce, something we eat raw?
Right now what we feel is with fresh fruits and vegetables, the amount of information we have is appropriate for guidance. What we're lacking is having a good, clear sense of exactly what steps are going to give the level of assurance that a mandatory program we would want to achieve.
In other words, on lettuce farms like this, farmers should follow what the FDA says, but they don't have to.
There is a way to protect our food supply, and it's not nearly as complicated as you might think. It doesn't require fancy machines or high technology or even very much money at all.
Here at McAfee Apple Gardens in Fresno, California, Mark McAfee has helped revive the reputation of Odwalla, who made the contaminated apple juice. His orchard is a leader in safety standards, with some common sense and inexpensive ideas, like testing his water for purity, enforcing strict hand-washing rules by having wash stations nearby, plus this ingenious device.
Just a ladder, right?
This is a-
every farm has a picking ladder.
This is a standard picking ladder used in the harvest of fruit in the central San Joaquin Valley.
Okay, so what's the big deal about your version of this ladder?
We don't touch the orange spaces. When you touch the orange space, you gotta go wash your hands.
Oops. But I'm not picking apples, so
That's
it's
okay,
right?
We modified these ladders so that you don't have to touch where the bacteria is, where your feet come in contact with this device at any time during the day.
So in other words, if you happen to attract some animal feces or whatever, and you step on this, you would get it in your
You
hands.
get on your hand and on the fruit all day long.
But McAfee says the problem is, he's one of the only ones taking these steps.
You see people using methods not as stringent as the methods you're using, and not as common sense. Tell me what you feel in your gut.
They just don't know. I've sat in rooms where farmers say, we've done this for 50 years this way. And I'm not going to call them ignorant. These are very bright, very hardworking people. But emerging pathogens are not the same guys we knew 15, 20 years ago. And with that thought in mind, we have to evolve in our thought process.
Despite McAfee's assessment, our nation's fresh produce has been overwhelmingly safe. And the big lettuce producers, like Fresh Express, have never been linked to an E. coli outbreak. They spend millions of dollars on safety standards. The cases we've shown you are rare. But as long as there's the potential of even one contaminated leaf of lettuce, Haley's mother Rita isn't going to be taking any chances.
I separate each leaf. I do the whole head.
When she served lettuce, It takes her a good half hour just to wash and, she hopes, disinfect the leaves. Okay, so now what?
So what I do, once they're all separated and everything, I spray them.
This is really a scientific process.
I guess for some people this is a big deal. You know, for me it's just not. I mean, it's just, I'm washing it and I want to, especially lettuce.
Haley, do you remember when you were sick?
Yeah, something was on the lettuce, it was coli.
So Haley, do you eat lettuce now?
Yeah, this is good lettuce now, and this is good water.
Good water, right?
Good water, and it's not bad water.
We really came so close to losing her so many times. E. coli 0157H7 is something that did not exist when we were younger. The world is different now, and we have to treat the food we eat differently now, too.
Now, we don't want to scare you into not eating fresh fruits and vegetables. The experts say that nearly all our food is safe. But with this new strain of E. coli out there, it's more important than ever to thoroughly wash everything you eat. You'll reduce the risk greatly.
And that means even if it comes in a package and says that it's been triple washed, you wash it. Because after what we've seen, you can't be too careful.
And there are some tools out there that you can use to wash your lettuce. Like something, when I was watching this, a thought came into my head. Something called a salad spinner. I mean, many people buy these salad spinners, and if you have a salad spinner that you can use, you can actually wash the lettuce. So you might be asking, well, you can use the sink, but what if it were unfiltered water? You may have to use bottled water. So if you have one of these salad spinners, that's the whole key to use. A salad spinner, also known as a salad tosser, is a kitchen tool used to wash and remove excess water from salad greens. It uses centrifugal force to separate the water from the leaves, enabling salad dressing to stick to the leaves without dilution. But can it reduce E. coli? Well, it might. It won't get rid of E. coli, but you'll reduce E. coli. So the next time you're going to Walmart or any places that sell these salad spinners, that's a good recommendation. And if bags say pre-wash, you wash it. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Throughout this past hour, we've been focusing in on E. coli. We looked into the sliver onions in the quarter pounder. We looked into E. coli in the meat. We looked into E. coli in the lettuce. Now we're looking into apple juice. Tonight we're taking a second look into E. coli, and probably a Throwback Thursday first. And if you missed this, we're going to do a repeat on Throwback Thursday, which is tomorrow. So, with this in mind, if you drink apple juice, we're not scaring you or your child into not drinking any more apple juice. But if you were drinking apple juice many years ago, you might remember this E. coli in these apple juices. So can E. coli really be found in apple juice? Here's Rob Stafford with a second look.
I never thought twice about it. I, naively assumed that if it was on the shelf, that it was safe.
What I meant to say was, what I meant was, I should mention this before we continue on. We talked about this last season. A couple seasons ago, we looked into the E. coli in apple juice. I also forgot to mention. So here's Rob Stafford with our Give Me a Break second look.
Thought twice about it. Here's Rob Stafford with a Dateline Consumer Alert. I never thought twice about it. I, naively assumed that if it was on the shelf, that it was safe.
It is an old-fashioned favorite, an American tradition. Millions of parents serve it to their children every day.
Apple juice. I've given all three of my children apple juice since they were babies. what could be safer.
But in Denver, Colorado, fresh apple juice is no longer part of 5-year-old Brian Dimmick's diet. The drink his mother always considered a health food had become a potential health threat.
He changed from a healthy kid to a really sick kid almost overnight.
3 weeks ago, Brian drank apple juice. 5 days later, he was hospitalized in critical condition. Brian's kidneys were failing.
It was real hard to believe at several points along the way that he was going to make it.
And Brian is not alone. A 16-month-old girl in Denver died Friday. As many as 53 others became ill in Colorado, California, Washington State, and British Columbia. All after drinking apple juice, all apparent victims of the dangerous E. coli bacteria, normally associated with undercooked tainted ground beef. The same kind that killed 4 children and sickened 600 people in the Pacific Northwest in 1993. So how does the same dangerous E. coli bacteria find its way into something which seems as safe and healthful as apple juice? Health officials believe some apples from an orchard like this one became contaminated with manure. And because the juice was not pasteurized, the bacteria was never killed.
E. coli 0157 is a challenge.
Dr. Rob Tokes is chief of the foodborne disease section of the Centers for Disease Control.
I don't think we know yet what the best means of preventing this sort of outbreak is. Pasteurizing juice is certainly one option, and it's a technology that's available and easy to use.
For a long time, experts believed the high level of acid in apple juice was enough to kill E. coli without pasteurization. But in 1991, the bacteria showed up in juice at a roadside stand in Massachusetts. And now, for the first time, in juice from a factory.
Foods that may have once been considered completely safe because they were too acid for bacteria to survive may in fact be a haven for E. coli 0157. That's one example of the surprises that E. coli 0157 has up its sleeve.
Certainly a surprise to the manufacturer of the tainted juice, which mechanically scrubs its apples. The Odwalla Company of California voluntarily pulled its apple-based products off the shelf.
We believe that we've done everything known to the industry to prevent this.
Many customers bought Odwalla's apple drinks because they are natural, not pasteurized. A process juice lovers say reduces flavor and nutrients. Even though E. coli is rarely found in juice, the Food and Drug Administration recommends that children and the elderly drink only pasteurized apple juice. The overwhelming majority of juice is pasteurized. The trouble is, it's tough to tell which brand is and which is not. As we found in this store, many of the brands simply don't say. But experts tell us if the juice is not pasteurized, it should not be here on the shelf, but in the refrigerated section of the store. If you're not sure, ask your grocer. Health officials also suggest these tips to reduce your risk of infection. If you buy unpasteurized juice, boil it for 30 seconds. Always wash fresh fruits and vegetables. Make sure ground beef is cooked thoroughly till the inside is brown and the juices run clear. And your mom's advice is the best advice. Wash your hands with soap and hot water after using the bathroom and after preparing raw meat.
Brian, you take care and come back and visit us, okay?
Yes, yeah, Tuesday.
Okay.
Brian Dimmick is one of the lucky ones. He came close to total kidney failure, but is expected to make a full recovery. Scientists can't say for sure how great a risk drinking unpasteurized juice poses to the public, but it's a risk the Dimmick family does not think anyone should take.
I would hate to see another child as sick as this kid was. It was just frightening.
In response to this latest E. coli scare, the Food and Drug Administration is considering a requirement to pasteurize all apple juice. Meanwhile, Odwalla executives have offered to pay all medical bills related to the outbreak.
Okay. So, what have we learned so far? We'll give you a review when we come back. Stay with us. Throughout the past 2 hours, we focused in on, we took a second look into E. coli. Let's give you a quick review. Always, when you're buying fresh fruits and vegetables, always wash them. Whether it's leeks, if you're washing leeks, cut into quarters and rinse it off to prevent any potential dirt or sand that could easily be in that leak. Lettuce, always wash lettuce. Any vegetable, carrots, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, any vegetable that you find. And don't trust the packages that say pre-wash. Even if it says pre-wash, you wash it yourself. And if you don't have you might have to invest in a salad spinner. It's a tool that you ought to have when you're making salad, when you're using lettuce. It gets rid of all the water that's in the lettuce, and it can really help you out here. Pasteurized juice. Boil it for 30 seconds. Boil it, whether it's apple juice. Any juice that you find that's not pasteurized, you pasteurize by boiling it for 30 seconds. No more than 30. Not 60, not 90, not 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. Don't boil it, 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds. Once the 30 seconds is up, kill the heat, let it cool, your child can drink it. Next, and finally, next to meat. Any meat, beef, chicken, pork, fish. Cook out the bacteria. Cook out that E. coli. And when you're doing burgers, no patty smashing. Not only does it dry out the meat, but it'll have cross-contamination in it. Meaning if you touch that spatula on top of the raw meat, you could cross-contaminate. And that could be a big issue, not only for you as a fast food employee, but for the people at home. And if you don't know how long to cook a burger for, or whether it's done, use an infrared thermometer, which can really, really help you. If you don't have one of those digital thermometers, if you're afraid of that, get an infrared thermometer. It really helps, and it helps you out. It helps really out, and it can be used to take your temperature, and it really can be used for food. It can be used for anything, even to heat up your pan. And finally, one of the biggest ones ever: wash your hands. WYH. Wash your hands. No more than 20 seconds in hot soapy water. The water should not exceed 110 degrees. Just hot water, soap, 20 seconds. And make sure you get under your nails as well when you're washing your hands. Really get into that. And as a fast food employee, I know all about food safety. I mean, we make it Five Guys. It's like, I don't work at Five Guys. I mean, if I worked at Five Guys, it's like, you can train these people. You look at the burgers and you know what? That burger's done. Not without temping it first. If you don't know, look up a temperature chart online, and it can let you know. And once you figure it out, write it down so that way you'll remember what meat you're cooking on. Like if you're cooking a mid-rare steak, you ought to know the temperature of that steak. So let's show you right now what we mean. So let's show you right now what we mean. So let's take a look. Let's say you're cooking a steak. So to show you this, let's show you this picture up here. If you're going to cook it rare to 120 degrees, cool, rare 120 degrees, medium rare 130 degrees. Medium is 140, while well done is at 150, and well done is at 160 degrees. That's for steak. Now for our hamburger temperature guide. Because this is very important. Yeah. You go straight here. There you go. Too high. Let me fix you all up here. There we go. That will do. Alright. Let's take a look, because you can actually buy a meat guide. Why not? Okay. So let's take a look at the hamburger temperature chart so that way you know how long to cook a hamburger for. Well, the problem is, well, for hamburgers, let me zoom in here. Okay, let me zoom in here. Now y'all can see. All right. If it's rare, it's 120, 125 degrees. A mid-rare hamburger, 130, 135 degrees. Mid-well is 150, 155 degrees. And well done is 160 and 165 degrees. Now, medium safe temperature is 160 degrees. So, going back to hamburgers. So let's look at a video from Problem Solved. Talking about burgers.
Burgers into this. Form your hamburger. This first. Don't let your grill turn your burgers into this. Form your hamburger patties ahead of time. And let those chill in the fridge at least 30 minutes. That'll help them cook more evenly and keep them juicy. Before they're ready to hit the grill, brush them with a high heat oil. I like to use grapeseed oil. Then add salt, pepper, and your favorite seasonings. Since burgers are prone to flare-ups, preheat your grill to get those grates nice and hot. Then you can turn a section off so there's no direct flame. And that's where you want to put your burgers. Without a direct flame, you won't get those flare-ups. You can even add an ice cube to the center to help even out the cook. Now you can close up the grill and let those cook. Let your burgers cook halfway through and flip them one time. A good sign that your burgers are done is when those juices run clear. You can see there's still a little red in the juice there. This is a great time to add cheese right before those burgers are finished. To trap that juice inside, let them rest at least 10 minutes before eating. Now that's a tasty burger. Don't let your grill turn your
So here's the bottom line here. Know your temps. Infrared thermometer, salad spinner. Those are tools you ought to use when you're doing salads and meats. Talking about Throwback Thursday, we're gonna redo what we talked about again. If you missed it, we're gonna tell you about this again on Throwback Thursday. Actually, yeah, we're gonna dedicate a whole Throwback Thursday to E. coli. To really help you out in case you don't know how long to cook it for. And before we head off, something that Stone Phillips said in 2002.
Supermarkets.
So here's some tips.
No promise at all. The federal government says the best way to protect your family is to cook meat to an internal temperature of at least 160 degrees, chicken to 180 degrees, and fish should be cooked until it's flaky.
Meat to 160, chicken to 180, and fish should be cooked till it's flaky. Those are the bottom lines. If you don't know, look up a meat temp chart. Or get some thermometers. Meat thermometers, infrared thermometers. Which thermometer suits you, that's what you should use. Come out tomorrow on Throwback Thursday, a repeat of what we talked about. To really help you understand better all about protecting you and your family. That's all for this edition of Game Break Wednesday. Going to Thursday. We'll see you again tomorrow for Throwback Thursday, and we'll also see you. If not, we'll see you again. We'll see you again for Game Break Friday. For all of us here at YouTube, making me a break. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. Have a good night.